I'm just gonna watch some stuff. Okay, don't mind me, but yeah.
Nikita Mazepin, Yuji Ide, and even the one and only Lord Mahavir. They're some of the worst drivers of all time, and you probably know them because of these.
Indian driver will be thinking about trying to get out of turn number 2.
Or because you've been subscribed to me for a while. But what if I told you there's a driver you've never heard of who's as horrific as them? Maybe even worse than all three combined, with an even crazier story. It's a story of secret training sessions, getting kidnapped, having some big shot contracts, burning through loads of cash, and crashing all over the place. This is the story of the worst driver you've never heard of. In a world run by men, only a few women manage to shine in racing, and just a handful have ever reached Formula One. Those who try need impeccable skills and have to fight all odds to make their mark. In fact, we have to go all the way back to 1992 to find the last woman who technically raced in Formula One. And, surprise, she's the star of this video, Giovanna Amati. But hold on, if you're looking for an inspirational story, this isn't it. Amati skipped the talent part, and with a game plan that even Stroll himself would envy, made it to the top.
Right.
Her story is as wild as it gets. Stick with me. Born in Rome in 1959, Amati had a pretty amazing childhood. Her mum, Anna Maria Pancani, was a famous actress, and her dad, Giovanni, owned quite a few theaters across the city. As spoiled as she could get, little Giovanna was not your average girl. While others were playing with dolls, she was playing around with Hot Wheels, or whatever they were called at that time, dreaming of going on to Motorsport Academy. Her love for racing just kept on growing, and when she was 15, she told her family she wanted piano lessons. Classic misdirection. While she secretly bought a Honda 500cc motorcycle. For 2 years, she'd speed off to the Vallelunga track near Rome to practice, all while her family had no clue. Her family started to get a little suspicious when, for the 4th time, she was terribly ill minutes before her supposed performance on the piano. But her life was awesome, like she was in heaven, and no one could bring her down from there. On February 12th, 1978, when Giovanna was just 19, and before her career had even started, she suddenly got attention from the entire country. 3 masked men violently grabbed her and dragged her into a van. Giovanna couldn't do anything, and she screamed for help and tried desperately to escape. Where was Giovanna? What had just happened? The kidnappers took Giovanna to a house nearby, but the police immediately began searching and getting very close, so they decided to move to a more remote location. The group was led by a Marseille gangster named Jean-Daniel Nieto, who knew all about the Amati family's money and asked for a huge ransom. Meanwhile, Giovanni Amati, whose family's assets had been frozen by the courts to fight organized crime by blocking ransom payments, was doing everything he could to get her back. Giovanna, completely terrified and helpless against these men, was locked in a wooden cage and abused physically and mentally day after day. While the police and courts worked to handle the case and save Giovanna, her father, whose accounts were still frozen, didn't care about the authorities' opinion and just wanted to save his daughter. He tried to raise money by using box office receipts from Star Wars, selling jewelry, and borrowing from the life savings of their servants. It was a life or death situation.
Yeah. If that's real, damn. Hold on. I'll be back. Oh, hi, alien. Give me a moment here. At least, I'm doing whatever. Oh, hold on. I shall try to do another spin. Actually, wait. Let me just get that shit together, okay? Well, okay. That's cool. Anyway, let's get back to it.
He was willing to try anything, with Giovanna going through inhuman torture, until finally, her father paid 800 million lira, $933,000 at the time, ransom on the 27th of April 1978. After going through this nightmare for 75 long days, Giovanna was finally back home with her parents, where she could start to recover. Shortly after, Nieto started sending Giovanna flowers and love letters, and even calling her to say he missed her. The guy was basically trying to trick young and innocent Giovanna into acting like they were lovers, but Giovanna told the police, and they helped her set up a meeting with him on Via Veneto in Rome to catch him. Nieto thought his plan had worked and showed up, but when Giovanna arrived, the police were waiting. Realizing it was a trap, Nieto pulled out a gun, but the cops shot at his feet until they finally arrested him. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison, escaped in 1989, and was caught again in 2010 after being on the run for 21 31 years. It doesn't stop there. Because Giovanna's family was rich, powerful, and now famous, tons of stories came out. The media went wild, even spinning a tale about a possible romance between Giovanna and Nieto, and especially after he reached out to her once the kidnapping was over. But of course, Giovanna always denied these allegations. She took a long time to get over it, and says the experience actually helped her chase her dream of becoming a professional racer. After this nightmare, Giovanna somehow got back to her normal life, and now more than ever, she used her dad's money and connections to set an example for future stars like Mazepin, Mahever, and Lance.
Oh boy.
How far would Amati go after everything that happened? Had her struggle made her stronger, forging her mindset and turning her into the ultimate driver? Would she be the first woman to race in Formula One and win multiple world championships? Well, using her privileged connections, she was convinced by her friend Elio De Angelis to switch from motorbikes to cars. And I say privilege because De Angelis wasn't just anyone. He was a Formula One driver himself. He achieved several wins and podiums with the Lotus. So she made the switch and joined a motor racing school to learn how to crush her rivals and become the best driver in the world. After learning how to drive a race car, Giovanna started racing in the Formula Abarth series in 1981. She jumped straight in without doing any karting first. Formula Abarth was like the entry-level series, similar to today's Formula 4.
You should have done the first.
If a young driver is reaching the top, they'd stick around for only a season or two at most. Giovanna, aiming to be the best, would spend a brief stint of 4 seasons
Are you
before moving up
serious?
the racing ladder. And yes, she got a couple of wins during those 4 seasons, but it was pretty clear from then on she wasn't going to be the next Senna.
How of an idiot? How much of an idiot do you? Oh my god.
In 1985, she finally moved up to Italian Formula 3, a good category for building your resume. But Giovanna didn't exactly shine. Just check out how she finished in the standings both years. Despite these results, and honestly, I don't even know how, in 1987 she moved up to the International Formula 3000, a more serious category for training future F1 drivers. It was here that Amati had the moment that put her on the map, a couple of years after her debut. But I'll get back to that in a little bit, because even though she was climbing the race
That Nürburgring?
as fast as a snail, that's for sure, her results were actually going downhill. True to her style, Amati stuck with her classic move, staying in the same category for 4 years with barely any progress. In fact, there was no improvement in her results.
She has to improve if she wants to move up. If not improve, then practice first and then go through the serious competition. Seriously, this is not good.
As you can see, Amati found that
She never found time for herself to practice and hone her art. That or she's scheming on something. I'm not sure.
secret ingredients for the perfect recipe were a no classification, too slow to score points, and a few retirements here and there for good measure. She followed this recipe to a T.
This is just bad. How stupid can she get? Of course she can't get to her maximum potential by doing this. Following a playbook that if it actually gets too difficult for her, retire. This is because she hasn't had any serious practice. She hasn't had any serious schooling. She just wants to go do shortcuts for fuck's sake. Oh my god. Disgraceful. This is disgraceful! Motorsport in itself is an art by itself, depending on the type of motorsport. It's like Counter-Strike. You don't become a competitor by actually going through shortcuts every time to get to the top. Of course she's gonna get called out many times, and then she's going to be the disgraced one.
During her 4 long years in International Formula 3000, ending up with a grand total of 0 points. They say her 0 points in 31 races inspired Lord Mahever to set the record. But unfortunately for Amati, even the Indian Lord, with some skill and a bit of magic, beat her by 2 races. And now it's time for her big moment. And once again, not for the right reasons. It's the 7th round of the 1990 season at Hockenheim. As usual, Giovanna's having a tough time with her car and is way behind the points. Suddenly, another driver, Phil Andrews, catches up and gets ready to pass her. Andrews moves to the right, lining up next to Giovanna and slowly closing the gap. Then he slowly edges to the right, giving Giovanna less and less room. The Italian driver, stuck between him and the grass, has to ease off of it to avoid going off the track, while Andrews finishes his move. It's, at most, just a racing incident, right?
What's happened with Max?
Nothing, just an incident on the race.
Well, not for Amati. A couple of weeks later is one of those things that puts Amati right up there with Maldonado
Oh boy.
or Mazepin.
What the? Seriously? Wow.
A couple of weeks later, during tests at Oulton Park, they meet again on track. Giovanna is probably on an in-lap, just coming out of Knickerbrook. A fast right-hand turn where you barely need to slow down. Andrews, going faster than her, again, passes her on the right, not knowing what's about to happen. Amati, for no apparent reason, suddenly turns her car to the right where Andrews is passing. With no time to react, Andrews' front wheel hits Amati's left rear wheel. At around 160 miles per hour, Andrews' car goes flying into the air and speeds towards the tire barriers. Andrews has slammed into the barriers at over 100 miles per hour. His car is totally wrecked.
That is bad.
Where is he? Well, miraculously, he was taken to the medical center, and after several checkups, it was confirmed that he was okay.
I just crested the rise and she jinked to the right sharply. I honestly couldn't say whether or not she did it on purpose.
This is what happens when you don't get enough training, for fuck's sake. I hate this so much, bro.
Welcome.
I hate this so much. This is what happens when you don't get enough training, for fuck's sake.
But it was very odd. It didn't really matter at that stage because I was about to have the most terrifying accident of my life. I can't remember when the anger took over. But after I got checked out at the medical centre, I saw that Amati was waiting at the end of the pit lane for the session to restart again. I went up to the car and told her to get out. She wouldn't.
It was like Amati suddenly forgot how to speak English. She didn't explain anything and just kept on going like nothing happened. Even that murder attempt didn't end her career, but it was definitely the start of her downfall. However, her dumbest moments were still to come. After over 8 seasons stuck in Formula 3000 and lower categories with no improvement and wild performances like the one we just saw, it seems no one realized just how bad Amati was. At the end of 1991, somehow, Giovanna Amati, the driver who had managed a grand total of 0 points in 31 races and almost killed another fellow driver, got to test drive a Benetton Formula 1 car, completing just over 30 laps. But that's not all. A few months later, the Brabham F1 team, after years of uncompetitive cars and financial troubles, heading into what would be their final season, was looking for someone to join Eric van der Poel. The first choice was Japanese F3000 driver Akihiko Nakaya, but the FIA didn't give him his super license as they didn't recognize the Japanese F3000 series as a proper stepping stone into motor racing. But you know what did count for the super license? Yep, International Formula 3000. And you know which driver had definitely raced in Formula 3000 more times than almost anyone else ever? Of course, Giovanna.
Oh my god, they're gonna look for the more the experience rather than the. Oh my god. You are a failing team and you choose the one who doesn't have enough merits. Rather, you choose the one who has more hours and your is failing. What kind of decisions have these failing manufacturing teams been making for them to actually think that more hours actually matter more than the legitimate hard-earned merits? She didn't earn a single merit. She didn't earn even a point. What the fuck?
Amati.
Brabham introduced the first lady driver in Formula 1 in 15 years.
How on earth did that happen? Brabham barely had enough money to get to the races, and when other teams could do all the testing they wanted, they couldn't afford any of it. So what did Amati have? Not talent, that's for sure, but many connections and a lot of money. Her dad was a friend of Giulio Andretti.
I hate that
until he
so
was Prime
much.
Minister at the time.
She's just flexing her money to just do whatever she wants,
and
for
that's how
fuck's sake.
Giovanna Amati got into Formula 1. After Maria Teresa de Filippis, Lala Lombardi, Davina Galizza, and Desire Wilson, Amati was set to be the 5th woman to ever race in a Formula 1 GP. This grabbed a
You've got to be a hard-earned competitor for you to be appreciated. But for fuck's sake, always using money just because you can and just because you got the connections to. Disgraceful!
Ton of attention, which was exactly what Brabham needed to pull in some more sponsors. And when asked if she faced sexism when she became an F1 driver, Amati years later said,
Quando cominci ad arrivargli sotto, a partire a avere delle pole position o a partire in prima, in seconda fila, non ti parlano neanche più nei box. Nella pit lane i piloti neanche ti rivolgono la parola. Nessuno vorrebbe stare dietro una donna, sinceramente neanche io.
Why is it? Is that? It's simply because they're getting tired of you and there's stink coming from you. Especially during that incident. Now, people are starting to see your stink then, okay?
but what did she expect after pretty much buying her way into Formula One? And
Exactly, and using her riches too! Oh my god.
anyway, Giovanna signed with Brabham just 2 weeks before the season would start in South Africa, so she barely had time to get used to the team or the car.
Well, technically the car is really faster. The gearbox is completely different. The brakes are completely different. The engine is different.
Everything is coming way too fast for you,
I
darling.
mean everything.
Way too
Get what I'm
fast.
saying? It was pretty much a recipe for a major disaster. At Kyalami, Amati finally made her Formula One debut. The Italian driver spun out 6 times and was by far the slowest driver. And in qualifying, she gave it everything she had, but ended up in 30th and last place, almost 9 seconds behind Pullman Nigel Mansell and 3 seconds off the driver just ahead of her. Van der Poel, meanwhile, was 26.
All you had to do was go through training so they can weed out which ones are not worthy to be in there. And they could train you. Be prevented from being weeded out like this. But no, did you take the training? No, you used your dad to actually get there. Well, fuck you.
Almost 4 seconds ahead of
Whether you are a woman or a man, it doesn't matter. You use your own riches to be a competitor? No. Disgusting.
The Belgian was the last to make the cut for the race, as back then only the top 26 were allowed to race. So Amati didn't make it into her first Formula One Grand Prix. But hey, it was her first weekend in a tricky car. Things would definitely get better in the future. The second race of the season was at the Hermanos Rodriguez circuit in Mexico. And sure enough, the predictions came true. Amati put on another cringeworthy show, ending up 30th and dead last in qualifying, 8.7 seconds behind pole.
Giovanna Amati, she
Oh my god.
seconds this morning. She didn't go out at all. She's one of the 4 people who currently are not qualified for the Grand Prix.
Now, to be fair, her team
By the way, the video that I'm watching right now is called The Worst F1 Driver You've Never Heard of. This is from Daily Fuel Up. I am going to be subscribing to it, actually, for everything. And then I'm going to like this video because it deserves my like. It does. Let me just tell you, disgraceful. The way she became a competitor, oh my god. And her means to an end is to use her connections, her father, for the... She's not a competitor. Who the fuck is she fooling?
mate was second to last, proving that Brabham was a total wreck, but he still managed to be 3 seconds ahead of her. Just check out how she tackled those corners, pushing the car to its absolute limits. This was the first time ever that neither of the Brabham cars made it into a Grand Prix. It was obvious the car was awful. The team bosses were starting to get seriously fed up with Amati's performances. But hey, give it some more time, right? With more experience and confidence, it was just a matter of time before Amati got...
You should have taken the training. You should have taken the training for you to have your solid footing, but you did not. I'm going to say it again and again and again and again and again. You took shortcut after shortcut, and where did that get you? Fuck you.
got better, but the pressure just made everything even worse. In the third Grand Prix at Interlagos, Giovanna didn't just fail to improve, she actually became even worse. Guess how many seconds she was off pole? 7, 9, almost 11 freezing seconds behind, finishing last once again. The Italian driver was basically racing in her own league. Amati's driving was terrible. Not only could she not keep up with the others, but she wasn't getting any better over time. And the worst part, her financial backers, seeing how badly she was performing, decided to pull the plug on the money. With no results and no cash, Brabham dumped her right away, ending Amati's dreams of racing in Formula One. She was replaced by Damon Hill, who was, well, a definite improvement.
And I've also done quite a bit of 3000, and I really feel like I'd like to see how I'd Formula One actually racing and competing in
And they deserved him. Because he worked for it. Whether you're a woman or you're a man, I'm going to say it again and again and again and again and again. Don't go through shortcuts if you want to be what you want to be. You keep grinding it out, sure. It's better if we have practice, especially if there is a way to do these things properly. But never flex and use the flex to gain the advantage and hope that it would actually get you somewhere. That's not how competitive sport works, bro. That's not that's not how competitive sport works.
Just like that, Amati's Formula One career was over, much to everyone's relief. But according to her, she wasn't given her fair shot. But what did she expect? Another 4 years to figure it out? I mean, now that I'm saying it out loud, she probably did. Anyways, after her first stint in F1, Amati raced in sports car and prototype series. She didn't do amazingly there either, but it's fair to say she didn't mess up as much as she did in F1, though that's not saying much. In her final year as a driver in 1999, she raced a full season in the Sports Racing World Cup, finishing third in the SR2 class and having the best season of her career before calling it quits on a high note. But honestly, Amati won't be remembered for any of that, especially not for her F1 performances. In fact, if she weren't on all those lists of women who raced in F1, hardly anyone would have to remember her name. And because of performances like Amati's, they introduced the 107% rule in 1996. If you're not familiar with this, it's pretty simple. Basically, a driver has to complete a lap within 107% of the fastest time to qualify for the race. In other words, if the pole time is 100 seconds, everyone has to get their lap done in under 107 seconds to make the cut. In the early 90s, lots of teams like Brabham left F1 because of financial issues, so the number of drivers dropped to 26, the maximum allowed, and anyone could qualify no matter how fast they were. Without this rule, years later, Amati could have actually qualified for the races. And just think of the chaos she would have caused in an F1 race. Amati's racing career can be summed up in a few words. A rich, spoiled kid with a dream who, thanks to her connections and money, managed to achieve it, but thankfully didn't stick around for too long. She didn't make much of an impact in Formula Abarth, Formula 3, or Formula 3000. Even though she stayed in those categories for years, she mostly had bad results and made some wild crashes like the one at Alton Park. Even so, her money and connections got her into Formula One, where it didn't take long for everyone.
This is the most disgraceful thing that a competitor can do. I hate it that this was done before, and they think they're so entitled enough that they can actually just prance around like it's nothing. They don't respect the art. She never respected the art of the Formula One.
And to see just how bad she really was. The worst part is, F1 still has, and probably always will have, paid drivers like Amati, who, with their cash, push out more talented drivers who actually deserve a spot. Now, if you watch this one until the end, I'm 100% confident you'll love this video. Probably even more. And as always, thank you for watching.
I am not going to say so much about this after, because this is not exactly a formal reaction. But I will say this, it's very, very... I'd like it better if she would have at least respected the sport. But did she respect the sport at all? No, she did not. And do I actually want to laugh at her? Do I want to laugh at her to keep making up that fact, to keep making that point? Yes, I will keep laughing at her no matter what, because she doesn't deserve love from an up-and-coming competitor. Okay? She's no competitor. She's a fraud. I am going to keep repeating it. Fraud.